Okay, today we will learn the applied psychometrics in forensic psychology. So I am sharing the screen. Shivkumar, it is visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay. Kobita, it is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, please you read. Psychological profile of criminals and victims. Please you read.
Psychological profile of criminals and victims. Psychological profiling, also known as criminal profiling, involves understanding the psychological, behavioral, and demographic characteristics of individuals based on the analysis of crime scene evidence and other investigative information. Profiling both criminals and victims is crucial in forensic psychology and criminology. This essay explores the psychological profiles of criminals and victims, examining the key characteristics, motivation, and implications for law enforcement and victim support. Psychological profile of criminals. Criminal profiling involves identifying patterns and common traits among offenders. These profiles help predict the behaviors and characteristics of unknown criminals. Many violent criminals exhibit traits of psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder characterized by a lack of empathy, remorse, and propensity for manipulative and
Deceitful.
deceitful behavior. Some criminals display narcissistic traits, including an inflated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. Criminals often have a modus operandi, a consistent method of committing their crimes, and signature, a unique element that satisfy their psychological needs. Serial offenders may show a pattern of escalating behavior where the severity or frequency of their crimes increases over time. Many violent crimes, such as serial killings or sexual assault, are driven by the offender's need for power and control over their victims. Crimes like theft, fraud, and certain types of homicide are often motivated by financial gain. Personal vendettas or unresolved anger issue can motivate crimes such as assault or murders. A significant number of criminals have histories of childhood abuse, neglect, or trauma, which can contribute to their criminal behavior. Drug and alcohol abuse is prevalent among many criminals, often exacerbating aggressive tendencies.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
It's not audible, sir. Hello.
Hello, Shivkumar.
Hello.
Now, Kobita
Hello.
is.
Hello.
Shivkumar, you are audible. I think Shivkumar has network problem.
Yes, yes.
So she is asking suddenly. Okay, you continue.
Aggressive tendencies and lowering inhibitions. Criminal analysis examination. Criminal analysis examination is a crucial aspect of forensic psychology and criminal justice. focusing on understanding the behavior, motives, and pattern of offenders. The examination involves various methodology and tools to gather and interpret data related to criminal activities. Below is an outline of key components and methodologies involved in criminal analysis examination. 1. Crime scene analysis. Crime scene analysis involves the systematic examination of a crime scene to gather evidence and understand the event that transfer. Key elements include gathering physical evidence such as fingerprints, DNA, bloodstain, and weapons. Reconstructing the sequence of events to determine how the crime was committed. Examining the behavior of the offenders and victim to gain insight into the offender's modus operandi and signature. Psychological profiling. Psychological profiling, also known as offender profiling, involves creating a psychological and behavioral portrait of an unknown offender. The process includes using statistical data and patterns from past crime to make generalization about the offenders, analyzing the specific details of the current crime to draw conclusions about the offender's characteristics and motives, examining the crime scene behavior, choice of victims, and method used to understand the psychological state of the offenders. Victimology. Victimology is the study of victims to understand their roles in the crime and their interaction with the offenders. This includes analyzing when the victim was chosen and what made them a target. Understanding the nature of any prior relationship between victims and the offender. Number 3, assessing the psychological and emotional impact of crime on the victim. Number 4, forensic interviews. Forensic interviews are structured interviews conducted with witness, victims, and suspects to gather detailed information. Techniques include encouraging detailed recall by asking open-ended questions and using memory-enhancing techniques. Number 2, analyzing verbal and written statements for inconsistency and sign of deception. Deception. Criminal investigative analysis. Criminal investigative analysis combines various data sources to develop a comprehensive understanding of the crime and the offender. This includes identifying connection between different crimes, suspects, and victims, analyzing the location of crimes to determine pattern and predict where the offender might strike next, examining the timing of crimes to understand patterns and routines of the offenders. Psychological testing. Psychological testing involves administering standardized tests to suspects to assess their mental state and personality trait. Key tests include assess personality structure and psychopathology, evaluate the presence of psychopathic traits, provides insight into cognitive and emotional functioning. Behavioral evidence analysis. Behavioral evidence analysis examines the offender's behavior before, during, after the crime. These include the method and procedure used by the offender to commit the crime, unique aspect of the crime that fulfill the offender's psychological needs, alteration made to crime scene by the offender to mislead investigators. Risk assessment. Risk assessment involves evaluating the likelihood of the offenders committing future crimes. These include assess the risks of violent recidivism, evaluates the risks of sexual offense
Recidivism.
recidivism. Criminal case studies. Analyzing past criminal cases can provide valuable insight into offenders' behavior and investigative techniques. Case study include examining well-known cases to understand the application of profiling and forensic analysis, studying serial offenders to identify patterns and behaviors common among them. Legal and ethical consideration. Criminal analysis examination must be conducted within legal and ethical boundaries. Key considerations include ensuring that evidence and profiling technique meet legal standards for admissibility in court, respecting the privacy of individuals involved and maintaining confidentiality of sensitive information, avoiding bias and ensuring objectivity in analysis and profiling to prevent wrongful accusations and convictions. Conclusion. Criminal analysis examination is a multifaceted process that integrates various scientific, psychological, and investigative techniques to understand and solve crimes. By combining crime scene analysis, psychological profiling, victimology, forensic interviews, and other methods, law enforcement can develop a comprehensive picture of criminal behavior. This holistic approach aids in identifying offenders, understanding their motivations, and preventing future crime while adhering to legal, ethical, and legal standards.
Nice. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I think now it is clear, that is wherein applied psychometrics will be very much applicable, particularly in case of the forensic psychological research or forensic sciences. So now here we can find out the difference between clinical psychology and forensic psychology. In case of the clinical psychology, we are doing diagnosis and suggested some therapies, or we are providing therapeutic intervention. And after that, we can review whether the therapeutic interventions are effective or not. But in case of the forensic psychology, the approach or the goal is different. Here the goal is not the therapeutic intervention, but to support the legal authorities about the underlying reason for the crime, nature of the crime, and typical profile of the criminals, so that the legal authorities, they can justify the underlying criminals' criminal behavior and the probability for the crime in future, and to what extent there is a possibility for committing another crime by the criminal. So these things are important in case of the forensic psychology. Here the interest is not the therapeutic intervention.
Sir, if forensic psychology analysis is in the jail, sir?
It is not within the jail, but sometimes within the jail, but sometimes one individual is identified by the court as the offender. And after that, forensic psychologist will study the typical crime scene. Offender basically could think, okay, that is how the offender made the plot, all those things. So sometimes within the jail, but as per my knowledge, that is, they are the referred. They are the referred case to the forensic psychologist. So in court, forensic psychologist, they can study the behavioral pattern, the crime scene investigation, and whether there is any probability for committing the crime or not. That is within the court. Not always in jail. Another thing in forensic psychology, that is the victimology. Now there is a probability for committing crime by the victims. That possibility is there due to some aggression or due to fulfillment of some needs. Maybe the faulty assumption. So what is important, that forensic psychologists, they can suggest some the rehabilitation procedure for the offenders. Now, there are different systems like the brain mapping. That system is there. Through the brain mapping, it is possible to predict whether the offender will commit another crime or not. So in this way, forensic psychologists can provide support. And what is the function of applied psychometrician? applied psychometrician plays very critical role because how do you assess the behavior, specifically the cognitive function, that the memory, learning, thinking pattern, etc. through the structured or unstructured interview or through some psychological scale. So the applied psychometrician can construct the instrument for assessing the crime profile as well as the criminal profile. Besides, applied psychometrician can construct the test to assess the competency to stand trial. For example, one offender is suffering from schizophrenia. Due to auditory hallucination, the offender committed some mistake, committed some crime. So now who will investigate? So it is the role of forensic psychologist forensic psychiatrists to diagnose and to provide support to the lawyer or the legal authorities, concerned legal authorities or court proceedings for specific judgment. Okay. So these are the issues are vital in case of the applied psychometrician in forensic psychology or forensic profiling. Kavita, now it is clear?
Yes, sir.
So
Sir,
there is a difference between the two.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Bolo.
Sir,
What is your question?
sir, normal people do the crime that time, how it is analysis, sir, psychology of that offenders?
Normal people do the crime if it is a crime by the court. Then forensic psychologists can play the important role to justify whether this offender commits crime due to the psychological factor or due to some other factor. So everything depends upon the court. Bolo. হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, আমি তো জানিয়ে দিয়েছি, সবগুলো এসে গেছে, 3টে পার্সেলই এসে গেছে। তুমি তো কে? কি বুঝতে পারছি না। ও হো, মেজমাসি। আহ, আচ্ছা আচ্ছা। তুমি কি ওখানে গেছো নাকি? ও আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, ভেরি ব্যথিটিক। সাহেবের সাথে একটু কথা বলতে হবে। আমি ক্লাসে আছি। তারপরে হ্যাঁ, সরি কবিতা, একটু বলো। হ্যালো কবিতা।
Yes, sir.
হোয়াট ইজ ইউর কোশ্চেন?
Sir, if normal people does the offense, then it is possible to analyze the psychology of the patient, of the offenders.
Yeah, that is possible. It's a general people, but not the victimized by the court.
Yes,
But
sir.
this forensic psychology is mainly related to the court case. Because maybe one committed suicide. Suicide is the crime. হ্যাঁ দিদি, বলুন বলুন দিদি, পেয়েছেন? না না, বলুন। হ্যাঁ বলুন। Okay, Kavita, now you read this one.
Sir, I have one more question. How suicide is, sir, crime, sir?
Suicide to crime. তুমি যদি কেউ যদি সুইসাইড করে তো সেটা ক্রিমিনাল বিহেভিয়ার হিসেবে ডায়াগনোসিস হয়। কারণ আমি যদি সুইসাইড করি তবে একটা সোসাইটি অ্যাফেক্টেড হচ্ছে। যদি কোনো মানুষ ক্রাইম করে একটা সোসাইটি অ্যাফেক্টেড হয়ে যায়। কেউ যদি সুইসাইড করে সোসাইটি অ্যাফেক্টেড হয়ে যাবে, আরো অনেকে সেখানে সুইসাইড করতে যাবে। যেটা হয় তোমার এগ্রিকালচারাল ক্ষেত্রে। If any agricultural farmer commits suicide, there is a high probability that for the other farmers to commit suicide. So it is a crime.
But in rural area, adolescent or adult male are also take poison and commit suicide.
Yes, yes. It happens, no? Okay, now you did this one.
Psychological instrument for forensic profiling. Forensic profiling relies on various psychological instruments to assess and understand the behaviors, trait, and mental states of both criminals and victims. Here are some key instruments commonly used in forensic profiling, along with brief descriptions. The MFP I2 is a widely used psychological assessment tool designed to evaluate personality structure and psychopathology. It consists of 567 true-false statements, and it is used to identify various mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, and psychopathy. Helps in assessing the psychological state and personality traits of offenders, particularly in understanding underlying mental health issues that may influence criminal behavior. The PCLR is a diagnostic tool used to assess the presence of psychopathy in individuals. It consists of a 20-item checklist scored based on a semi-structured interview and a review of collateral information. Essential for identifying psychopathic trait in offenders, which can provide insight into their potential for violent behavior and recidivism. The TAT is a TAT is a projective psychopathological test in which individuals create stories about
psychological test, not the psychopathological, psychological test.
Psychological test in which individuals create stories about ambiguous image. It is used to uncover underlying motives, concerns, and the way they see the social world. Useful for exploring the inner thought and emotions of offenders, helping to reveal motivations and potential stressors contributing to criminal behavior. The স্যার একটু এনলার্জ করবেন?
The Rorschach test.
হ্যাঁ স্যার একটু বড় করবেন, একটু ছোট।
এবার দেখা যাচ্ছে?
Yes, sir. The Rorschach test is a projective test consisting of 10 ink blots, ink blots. Individual describe what they see in each ink blot, which helps psychologists understand their thought processes, perceptions, and emotions. Provide insight into the cognitive and emotional functioning of offenders, aiding in assessment of personality disorders and other psychological issues. The
VRAG.
VRAG is a tool used to assess the risks of violent recidivism among offenders. It includes 12 items derived from historical, clinical, and demographic factors. Helps predict the likelihood of future violent behavior, crucial for risk assessment and management in criminal justice settings. The SARS is an interview-based tool designed to assess thousand mental disorders. It helps differentiate between genuine and
malignant
mental health systems. Important for determining the authenticity. Of an offender's reported symptoms, particularly in legal context where malingering can be a concern. The static 99 and its revised version static 99R are actuarial tools used to assess the risks of sexual offenses recidivism. They are based on static, unchanging risk factors such as age and past offenses. Provides a standardized method for evaluating the risks of reoffense among sexual offenders, aiding in sentencing and treatment decisions. The MCM3 is a psychological assessment tool used to diagnose personality disorders and clinical syndromes. It consists of 175 true-false questions. Helps in diagnosing personality disorder and their mental health condition in offenders, providing a comprehensive understanding of their psychological profile. The BSI is a self-report inventory that measures psychological distress and symptoms of psychiatric disorder. It includes 53 items related on a 5-point scale, used to assess the psychological state of both offenders and victims, particularly in identifying acute distress and mental health needs. The PAI is a self-administered tool that assesses a wide range of psychopathological conditions. It consists of 344 items and provides insight into personality trait and clinical syndromes. Valuable for assessing the psychological and emotional functioning of offenders, contributing to a detailed profile that can inform treatment and management strategy. The psychological instruments are integral to forensic profiling, providing comprehensive insight into the mental and emotional states of individuals involved in criminal justice system. By utilizing these tools, forensic psychopathologists can create detailed profiling that aid in understanding criminals' behavior, assessing risks, and supporting victims.
Correct. তবে এগুলো বুঝতে পারলে যে there are several psychological instruments so that we can use for assessing the criminal as well as the victims. Okay. And the function of applied psychometrician is to construct the psychological instrument for assessing different types of criminal behavior. So that is the function of applied psychometrician. আচ্ছা, এটা পরে পড়বো, হ্যাঁ, আজকে এখানেই শেষ করি।
Yes, sir.
So thank you, Kavita, for reading the text. You have given lot of energies.
No, sir. Good night, sir.
Okay. Okay, Shiv Kumar, good night. Farah, good night. Tomorrow again we'll sit together in the morning at 9:45.
Hello, Farah madam, can you please share the recordings, because I am not able to take the class due to some technical issue I faced today.